a larger sense of the impact of the engineering department. So now into the functions of what we do. Our department, streets and traffic. This is our fairly significant piece of work. It has about $17 million of net book value. We have 150 kilometers of roads. We have 142 bus stops, just to give you a sense of the type of the scope of the work that we have there. And the annual operation and maintenance cost for delivering this service is $2 million. On the capital road side, we have a number of projects identified this year. The first 4 projects there are our main projects. And note that each project is associated with some corresponding underground works. Generally, road projects are driven by a number of reasons. Sometimes it's just deterioration and wear. Sometimes it's development. And more recently, in recent years, it's because of the deteriorating underground infrastructure, the water, storm sewer, and sanitary sewer. So they're driving the work that we do on the surface. And these are the works that we've identified for 2016, adding up to about $715 million. Mr. Mayor, I always put in this slide here. This is just reminds us all that our current investment in roads is not sustainable. You see a number there, 94 years, plus or minus 50 years. Mr. Mayor, it's something that I just want to bring to your attention, that clearly the work that we're putting in our roads. So I don't want to delay that matter. Works other is an important category that we budget different projects that don't fit into the normal categories of sewer and water and roads. Just say a couple words on these. The City Hall backup power. That involves a backup diesel generator. And it depends on how many circuits that we want to power. The generator can cost from $60,000 to $100,000. The bottle depot, it's an old building we have on 4th Avenue, clearly at the end of its life. Demolition cost involved there. Some work at the cemetery. Welcome signs. We're doing some rough designs of some welcome signs to bring forward for comment. The bus shelter at Maple Way, that's a small project that Chances Rimrock are sharing with us on that project. It was budgeted last year, but BC Transit didn't get their program in place in time, so we'll do it this year. Josephine Bridge deck replacement. This is a project where the timber deck has failed. It's failed last summer. We put a steel plate on it to get it through this year. We've done an engineering design on that. We've got an estimate for $65,000 to do that work. Victoria Key Bridge deck rehabilitation. There's another bridge that we have, and we can see the movement underneath the bridge. We need to tie the concrete deck to the steel girders underneath. Don't know how to do that. Don't know really how much it's going to cost. But we should probably do some design work and bring back a better cost estimate than what I kind of think it may be. This is a picture of Josephine Street Bridge over Lugan Creek. That's that steel plate that we have there. Interesting wood deck design. It was just a bunch of 2x10s or 2x12s on edge stacked, but just deteriorated, rotted out, and clearly we got this steel plate on there in time. Mr. Mayor, this is our garbage collection service. It's just residential customers now, approximately 6,300. The commercial service was discontinued last year, and this costs us $695,000. Our water system is pretty significant. It has a book value of $17 million. 165 kilometers of pipe. We have 800 fire hydrants, 20 pressure reducing stations. It's a very significant piece of our infrastructure, and it's going to cost us up to $1.5 million to operate and maintain our water system. Mr. Mayor, at the beginning of the meeting, he said, what's the status of that hole in the middle of Johnson Road in front of Argyle, the Arley? And it is a break in our asbestos cement 14-inch water line. And it was a longitudinal break. It started on Friday. We excavated it. We put a clamp on it. It wasn't enough to hold it. So we delayed the work, and we're working on it now, and we're replacing a larger section between two different pipe types. So we're thinking that's going to be the fix, and will be done by the end of the day. This is a project that'll come out of transmission and distribution, $683,000. Brian, can you estimate how much the cost of that repair in front of the old Arlington?
I can't be exact, but between Friday and today, you're probably 15 to 20,000 to
yeah.
get it done.
Yeah. So that'll come out of that $630,000 or $83,000. Our Waterworks capital plan, got a number of projects here identified. These projects are identified because of leaking pipes, the age of the pipe, and the type of the pipe. All of these neighborhoods are old neighborhoods, and there's a lifespan to these old AC lines. And a lot of these are CI, is cast iron lines. So they're more brittle, and we find that they'll move and crack as they get older and deteriorate. $482,000 to move forward on those works. I want to also make a note that we are going to install another water quality monitoring station at China Creek Dam this year. This will be continuous water quality monitoring in addition to the water quality monitoring station we have upstream. In fact, it's Island Timberland's water quality monitoring station we have upstream. So with those two locations, plus our intermittent sampling that we do for turbidity, I think we'll be able to draw some better conclusions and provide just more data on our water quality. These particular meters, they measure temperature, conductivity, and turbidity. I know we were looking at that over the last year. Our sewer collection and treatment system. That has a net book value of $18.8 million. And there again, you know, it's a very significant piece of infrastructure with 5 sewage pump stations. They're very high cost. They have a lot of hydro costs, and just servicing and maintaining 160 kilometers of sewer pipe. $1.2 million associated with treating the city's liquid waste on an annual basis in those areas within the budget. The capital budget, significantly less than others, $350,000. These projects, I think you'll recognize that they're part of other projects, whether they're associated with the water or the roads. They all kind of go hand in hand, and that just makes good sense. You know, we take a close look at the underground when we do any particular block. VIT stands for vitrified clay pipe, and it's just an old style of pipe that is, we don't have a lot of it, but we can count on it failing, so it's a good idea to move on some of those projects. Our liquid waste management plan is ongoing. We have hopes of getting approval for the stage 1 and stage 3 of this plan, the community's approval, council's approval, and the ministry's approval. This is obviously a clearly important program for us. We also, in December of 2015, we had a tender to remove the sludge from the lagoon, and we're analyzing that work now. So we'd like to move forward on that shortly. I'll be keeping council posted on the works involved in moving that project forward. Our drainage system, $390,000 in operations to maintain 2,400 catch basins, 1,400 manholes. Doesn't seem like a lot of money to me, but it's going to get a lot bigger in the years coming, because I've mentioned a number of times that we are endeavoring to separate our storm sewer from our combined sewers, and this is part of our liquid waste management plan. That number will get a lot bigger in the coming years.
Which number are you referring to?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. This is the operation side and the capital side too. The capital side is we're investing $450,000 proposed this year for a number of stormwater upgrades. Most of these are, well, I'd say half of them. Latham Road is a repair or an upgrade. Anderson Avenue, Maitland to Wallace, that's a new pipe being installed in that block to separate. And 7th Avenue is another new stormwater pipe. So over the last many years, we have been separating. Whenever we go into a block to improve it, we consider adding a storm line. Now this storm line that we put in some cases, will just go back into the sanitary sewer system at the time until we can take it right out of the system into a creek or the ocean. So it is a long going process, and part of our liquid waste management plan, we'll have a 40 to 80 year implementation plan, because clearly it's going to take a long time to do it. But the province will want to see our commitment going forward on that. Offices and technical, this is another cost center for the engineering department. This is where we have a lot of our administration. These items don't have any revenue associated with them. That's why they're grouped together in this fashion. $2.15 million. Cemetery operations, it holds steady at about $53,000, $54,000 to manage and operate the Greenwood Cemetery. And I've added a number of projects here. These are issues and opportunities, Mr. Mayor. These aren't in the budget clearly, but they have been raised over the last year. I kind of keep a stock list of them here just to bring them to council's attention. It's clearly your direction, what we do with these. The Food and Security and Climate Change Committee most recently identified a number of recommendations within their report, and I picked out the two that involved the engineering department the most. I'd like to speak to a couple of them. Is the all abilities protected bike lanes. These are one or two way bike lanes protected by different barriers, and these barriers can be posts, they can be planters where you can plant trees, and they can also act as rainwater detention. And the advantages of these protected bike lanes are clearly safety and mobility for all of the various users. And the Food Security and Climate Change Committee recommended to get a report only on this area this year, and so we can move forward on that. I'd like to talk about the pilot kitchen and yard waste pickup and compost program. This particular initiative would be based on any excess capacity or additional capacity we have in our existing residential pickup route. And we're looking at what room we have within our residential pickup system where we could perhaps identify a small neighborhood where we could provide carts and perhaps collect kitchen and yard waste and deposit it for composting at a site identified within the city facility. Normally, these pilot projects are very expensive. It's a concept that we talked about at the regional district, and I think the council has been given the regional district's composting report. There's a technical memorandum on that. It's quite complicated. It's something that is worth another read, how we move forward on this. But I do feel that this is something that we could possibly do, if we have that capacity within our existing system, to move forward in a minimal cost fashion. But we'll bring some more information forward on how that'll look. There's no cost associated with that at this point, but we will look at that. Mr. Mayor, I also put active transportation plan projects on the thing. The active transportation plan that we developed was further used to develop a cycling lane plan on the main routes using two basic treatments. It's hard to see on here, but the two basic treatments for cycling lanes that we've discussed are separated bike lanes and shared bike lanes, as opposed or in addition to the protected bike lanes that I just spoke about. The protected bike lanes are the most cost intensive and perhaps the most safe routing of cyclists. But these are the routes and the treatments that were brought together to the Alberni Cycling Committee at Shars Landing on January 14th, where the cycling community, a number of people showed up. I believe maybe 15 or 20 people showed up at that, and they were very enthusiastic. They were supportive of the work, and they had some constructive ideas around that. So we also talked about a Bike BC grant for 50% of the funding, and we'll prepare that grant if council decides to move forward on on an implementation plan this year. Is that clear? The food and security plan didn't recommend implementation, just studying that particular thing. But this item that I'm referring to is really just in addition to that or something like that. Jigster, thank you. Can you move me to the bottom really quick? That's good. Further to this cycle lane development, this is a typical situation where it'd just be a painted bike lane, separated bike lane, and this is where a shared bike lane. So the bikes are sharing the lanes with the cars. That's what I wanted to show you by that.
If I could, Guy, both of them look very dangerous to me, especially on 10th Avenue. I got a serious problem with that.
Yeah.
I know you're just going through a thing, but
Jake, can you find that
lots of
slide
questions
again
here for later, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose that'd be a good conversation point. I would expect the people from the Alberni Cycling Committee to say it's just be a lot safer than it is now. That's all.
I don't want to kill anyone.
Right. Okay, moving down the issues and opportunities. Johnson Road corridor improvements. Looking closely at boulevard area landscaping, concrete sidewalks. We have a stretch from, we could call it Winans to the tracks, that was budgeted last year that we didn't have the manpower to do, but is in progress right now. If we were to go further, there's a cost associated with that. Christmas lighting improvements, there was discussion around that. SOMAS boardwalk and lighting and sewer service, that was brought to your attention. I put it on the list. I suspect 300,000 perhaps for the boardwalk and 80,000 for the sewer. I put down Stamp Avenue improvements, Thunder in the Valley. That's a project that we don't know a lot about, but perhaps they'll be coming to talk to us further. 3rd Avenue medians, city facilities, fiber optic, and Harbor Road, Industrial Road. So I just put those together as a running list of some of the things that we've been talking about over the last year. And that's kind of it for now, Mr. Mayor, if there's any questions you have.
Council, questions? Go ahead. I do.
Yeah, I got some, but I'll let others go first. I usually do go first. Thank you.
The City Hall backup for the generator, we have had some discussions about the possibility of solar for backup. Is that possible, or can it only be a diesel-consuming monster in the back of City Hall, or do we need both, or?
Well, my assessment of that is that when you say diesel-consuming monster, well, it really is. It really is something that needs to produce a fair bit of electricity. So my experience with the solar power generators, we'd need a lot of surface area to be able to power even the minimal circuits that we have now. So that analysis hasn't been done. It can be done, but my sense of it is right now that we wouldn't have the surface area to manage the loads that we need.
But if you could be convinced otherwise, you'd be willing to look at it?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
And as you know, it's interesting because, I have brought to council's attention, we're putting 4 panels on the water treatment plant. And one of the main reasons for that is to understand what the potential in the valley is. Not everybody has a solar panel experience, but I think Councillor Alberni can speak to the size of array that would be needed even just to power a single house, right? So yeah, no, we'd be absolutely open to exploring that further.
Okay, and you're talking about water pipes, when we're replacing water pipes and so on. Is there an opportunity, like what's been done in Portland, Oregon, to put small Pelton wheels in some of the water pipes?
I remember when council first brought that to our attention last year, and I looked into that quite closely. And the concept is at our pressure reducing stations, we have 20 of them I mentioned in our inventory. Is there enough? So at a pressure reducing station, you're taking the energy out of the pipeline to reduce the pressure from one higher pressure zone to a lower pressure zone. So that's the opportunity, instead of just burning that energy off, to actually spin a generator and to add that electricity back to the grid. Looked at it a little closer. Our pipelines aren't big enough to justify the capital costs. The other piece is where's the closest use for that power. So those are the things that we looked at, and I know the efficiencies of those systems are coming down, and we can look at it again if that's what you'd like us to do. But my experience so far is that our pipelines aren't the larger ones that are required to make them feasible. Mm-hmm. But it's a brilliant idea.
Okay. If council decides to go with, as part of our celebration of our 50th birthday, 2017, a median on 3rd Avenue, on the flat part of 3rd Avenue, is there what would we need to do in terms of budget to make that happen?
Mr. Mayor, the lower stretch of 3rd Avenue from Redford Street to Bird Street, that's the area that I think you're referring to, to improve. And to put a median down the center of each of those 2 sections, I kind of broke it up into 2 sections, $90,000 per section, just for the median. Now, we do some work on how we can landscape that, how we'd improve the streetscape for that. That would be just for the median, but at the same time, we would want to repave the roads through there, so that'd be an additional $90,000 per section. So it'd be $180,000 per half to do that work. We haven't done the detail landscape design, but I'm pretty sure we'd be able to come up with a pretty good idea of what that would look like. The challenges associated with that, when we have looked at it in the past, would arise from the commercial businesses, because right now they have every commercial business has access left or right, in both directions. And clearly, by putting up a barrier down the middle, we're going to have to address the business owners along that block. That being said, there's a lot of communities that have these, and they're quite beautiful.
Mhm.
So it would be a project that, getting back to your answer, $180,000 for half, so it'd be $360,000 for the whole stretch.
Okay, and my last question, if we were to look at a budget for connecting Paulie's Point to city water and sewer, what would we be looking at for that?
That'll take a fair bit of effort, depending on the extent of the work that's involved. So, how much capacity do we need to serve? You know, what would be our future population on the other side? That's a bigger question.
Okay, well, we
Yeah.
probably will be faced with that question in 2016, so.
Yeah, we can look into it. We need to sit down and discuss what that looks like in terms of the build out. But we have water pressure. We wouldn't need a pump. You know, it'd be the pipe sizing and pipe routing
Yeah,
that will decide the cost.
okay. Thank you. Councillor Paulson, please come in.
Just, I want to go back to kitchen and garden waste, if I can. And as I looked through it last year, we have money in the earth fund for the vehicle, for the truck, for pickup.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that we have staff to do it. Maybe I'm not clear on moving forward, but I feel that we as a city are ready to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
The regional district isn't quite decided yet, but I'm curious if we were to move forward, what it would entail for us to move that product to Nanaimo or just north of Qualicum, where they are receiving kitchen and garden waste. Is it cost effective for us to consider that short term until the regional district comes together with their plan? The regional district's going to be faced with the choice of going this route and creating kitchen garden waste or installing a methane catchment plant, which from what I understand is millions and millions of dollars. So they're going to have two choices coming up pretty quick. But as a city, I think that we're ready to move forward, and we're actually lagging behind other cities. So I don't want an answer to this, but today, but maybe over the next little while, we could double check what our numbers might be, and if it's a negative situation, maybe it's not the way we want to go. But I see this as, once again, as I said last year, I think this is a section of business that I think we need to be prepared to move to. So it's just my feeling, and we have the money and the staff to do it, so let's go.
May I just briefly comment on that, Mr. Mayor? Okay, because it is a very big question, but it truly has been the next step in our solid waste management plan for many years. I've brought that to council's attention for several years, and it is true. There is more interest in the community. I'm hearing it, you're hearing it, and so we're close to it. But you do point out the biggest component. I won't know say if it's the biggest, but clearly one of the large components is disposal of the collection. You know, we can decide what we want to collect. Was it kitchen and yard, for instance? But it's disposal. How do we manage it? You know, so that disposal facility, whether it's trucking to somewhere else or whether it's within the valley, is the biggest piece, and how we manage that. I'd like to review the report from the regional district with council, because it is quite complicated, and there's a lot of issues associated with that. And I'll just mention one: transporting the energy from the compost that we collect outside the valley. That isn't one of the one of the visions of these people that really want to compost. They'd like to see that energy reside in the valley. It's a different angle on it, but that's all I can say for now. But would love to review that report with council.
Councillor Sobey?
When it comes to the even a pilot project you're talking about, the kitchen yard waste and so forth, is this something that, because I know it has to do with the methane levels at the dump, and this is why it's been brought up, but is it something that's been imposed by the province for us to regulate? Or is it just a project that we came out? Because I know you hear a lot of majority of people that are looking forward to it, but I hear a lot of people that said they're doing their own composting and don't want to have to pay for something that they're not going to use. So I'm just wondering, did this actually come up from the province telling us we need to control our levels of, or the regional district for the methane in their dump?
That's a good point to bring up, that other strong external force. It's strange how different projects develop. So there's a lot of people driving the kitchen and yard and guard waste because they feel it's the right thing to do. But another strong external force is the provincial government's rules and regulations around landfill gas generation. And this is probably the elephant in the room. This is probably what's going to drive the regional district to actually do something. And I think it's going to be sooner than later. As part of the recommendations from their report, they do talk about exploring what truly is the requirements around landfill collection at our facility. And if that's the case, the do nothing option isn't there really, because landfill collection would be so expensive. So then you divert to the other options, such as kitchen and yard waste collection, residential, or is it just institutional, commercial, and industrial? There's a lot of gas generated just from the food stores that operate within the community, and it's speculated that even if we just did that, that would be enough to that we wouldn't have to put in a landfill gas collection system. So the feasibility of the different options needs to be clearly looked at.
Okay, Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in your opening statement, we show revenue in garbage collection of $695.5, but our that's our year expenses, and your revenue is only $658. So there's a difference of $37,500. Is that the cost to pick up our own garbage? Is that why there's a difference there? Because your water and your
Yeah.
to balance out, but your garbage doesn't
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
Does it cost the city taxpayers $37,000 to pick up city garbage, our own
No.
from our facilities?
Councillor Washington, I wish it was that precise in terms of that. The numbers that we're working with in terms of our expenses, we're developing some cost history in our transition over the last couple of years. So this is our best estimate right now. I can't pinpoint that particular thing, but I think we're really close there in terms of that. And we'll take a close look at it next year and perhaps have to raise the rates.
And my second question, you talked about the Victoria Key Bridge. You're not sure what's wrong with it, and you're not sure how to fix it yet. We want to throw $50,000 at it.
I could probably.
I'd be scared to throw $50,000 at it. You don't know anything about it. Sort of the way you presented it. You said you don't know what to do. You don't know how to fix it. But
Well,
you want $50,000.
I think I know what's wrong with it, and I think I know how to fix it.
Oh, okay.
But I think if the Gertrude Street Bridge over Kixexis Creek is any history for me, perhaps maybe council wants, more research done into it, and because I don't want to find ourselves into this situation where, I gave you that best guess of 250,000 from within without having a lot of hard information, and that's come to be more than that. And so to avoid to avoid any misunderstanding or something. And I suspect it won't be $50,000 to look into that, but I estimated that. But I can show you at some point. We can go underneath the bridge actually, and I can just show you where the deflection is happening, and clearly we have to tie that together.
And then my last question would be that this kitchen and yard waste thing, is it really an item until we find a place locally to get rid of it? Like taking it to Qualicum and Nanaimo, that's really out of the question, expense-wise. We need to get rid of it locally before we can.
Mr. Mayor, I suspect that's the most feasible way to manage this. Even in the technical memorandum from the regional district, they do speak of it as an option, but my sense is that it's a weak option to ship it out of the valley. And the pilot project, I think I'm going out on a limb there a little bit too, anticipating that we have capacity, trying to identify a pilot area. Clearly this isn't going to be what a consultant would design as a pilot project. It'd really be something that would be very practical with the resources we have available. So I feel that I'm on a limb there as well, and even trying to identify any city site to deposit the stuff and turn it. I'm taking a risk that it's not going to smell, but I think it's worth experimenting with anyhow, if council chooses.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Minions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at the roads slide and your comment about, what we're doing right now is not sustainable, and we've heard that before. I'm wondering if what we spend year over year on roads and, updating and trying to get to the point where we are sustainable, are we increasing year over year, or are we just doing the same thing every year? And if we're not, do you have a suggestion for what we should be doing? Even if it's, maybe we can't increase our spending on roads 50% or 100% this year, that's too much of a jump, but should we be increasing 10% each year just to get to that point where we can be sustainable? Because we hear that a lot, that, our road system is going to fail eventually because we're not putting enough into it, but how do we get to the point where we are putting enough into it?
Interesting. Well, I think we'll get to the point when we see it and feel it. I often, and even driving to work today, I came up Athol Street between 3rd and 4th, and that road is just bumpy, and it's on our capital plan. It will align with the development of the apartment building that was recently burned down, right? So that road. But when you drive around the town, the roads aren't that bad, but a lot of the town's roads were built at the same time, and I think a lot of them will kind of fail at the same time. So, to be able to justify the $2 million a year in road rehabilitation work that would need to be done would take a huge stretch from the $600,000 that we have this year. I've mentioned in years gone by that 20 years ago we used to put $1.2 million into the roads. And it's just an area that gets smaller and smaller because it is a general revenue segment in the budget, like storm sewer. So that gets eaten up year after year. So anything that council can do to improve the investment in roads is going to take us in the right direction. But this year is less than last year, which is less than the year before, less than the year before. So we've just come down over the last little bit.
Is it something that, I understand not fixing up the roads, early if they don't need to be fixed up yet, but I'm just concerned about when we get to that point where, a lot of them do fail at the same time, what are we going to do? So, would it make sense for us to be slowly putting money into a reserve so that when we get to that point, we have something saved? I'm concerned about the constant mention that we're not doing enough and then doing less and less every year. How do we? How do you manage that? How do we fix it?
Yeah, no, it's a challenge for sure. Putting it in a reserve. Let's just spend it. Like the roads that we do now are associated with underground work. So I think that's great, right? Can we do more roads? I would hope that the roads that we would do would be associated with underground works, as opposed to just doing a road surface for the sake of the road surface. Our underground is in pretty poor condition too, and that's why they kind of go hand in hand, right? The roads will theoretically last 25 to 40 years, we'll say. But a sewer line will last 80 years or 100 years, or a water line, right? So theoretically, there'd be 2 road surfaces per sewer installation. So those are the kinds of, that's the type of timing that we have to consider when we do a road. We look at that, say if we just do a water line, well, we'll do that. We'll do the road twice before this water line gets done. So it helps us in our planning, you know, when we plan things out, if that makes any sense.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Alamany.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess a few questions. One, the bike lanes and stuff from the food security report and the active transportation plan. It looks like a great mapping out of sort of the main roads. And I heard that the meeting went really well. And that sounded great. I think probably if you're looking for a way to sort of satisfy both the recommendation from the report and the active transportation plan, if you brought forward, you know, options that had, you know, shared lanes, separated lanes, and then protected lanes, just so we can see that difference on the routes that are outlined there. I think that would probably cover off that report portion of the thing.
Okay.
Kind of get what I mean?
I think so, and I'd like to talk to you more about that, and in particular on that topic. If we're to apply for a Bike BC grant, we would need to have our share of money associated with it. So we'll talk more about that, because I think we've got a good chance at that. So,
great.
But right now we don't have any money into the budget for it.
Yeah.
But you know, what we actually come up with in terms of what we apply for, you know, that needs some more work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. The other things. You didn't explain the fiber optic city. It says city facilities fiber optic, 3.9 kilometers, $500,000. Just wondering what that was.
Well, it really is an option to our radio system that we have now, and I know our IT department struggles at time to get a strong enough signal down to the works yard, and you know, perhaps it's just cutting more trees down, right, to get specific, or maybe topping them. Let's put it that way. But yeah, no, it's just technology that we know that some communities are employing. I looked into it just briefly. This is just I just wanted to mention it. It isn't something that's definitely of high priority, because we do have our radio system. Yep.
And the only other one was same with Councillor Minion's. I think maybe we would benefit as a city from having, you know, the full array of you know, what does a street look like in our city? How much does it cost to create a street? And what's a full you know, what does that full plan look like over 120 years, or whatever the replacement cycle is, and what's a sustainable rate? And once we have that information, then maybe we can start to figure out what a sustainable funding of that infrastructure would be, and does it get to a point where the community, you know, likes what they see on the roads, and it's sustainable for something that we can actually pay for. So just a thought that maybe we can broaden out the question and then come back and we'll have a better idea for next budgets. You know, maybe we need to go to 5%, 10% more a year for a little while, like we did with water and sewer rates, so that we can get it back up to a proper level. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, I can show that math to you.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, thank you. Well, when I was getting ready for this meeting, I was going through all the budget thing, because I didn't know we had a presentation. I didn't find it till sometime around lunchtime today. But I got a couple of questions, if I could, and I don't expect you to be able to answer them right now. But I'm going over the engineering department's budget that we were given last Monday, page 8, or page 157 of the actual agenda. There's some, it says net operational costs from taxes for the waterworks is 000 plus 10% 0, and some other numbers. Could you come back at another time and explain what these 10% are increased from, to, or where? We keep reading hearing in the press that we've got these big tax increases and stuff. I haven't found it yet on any of these papers I've been given, but that's okay. There's a plus 10% there on the middle of the page in a blue, and there's down below net operational costs and taxes for the sewers branch is plus 9.8, and it's all 0. So what's the increase? What's it to? What's it referring to? That's just one of them. I got other questions on page 167 and so on, and page 27 of the actual document, in line 64110, it talks about 1.4 million, but doesn't really say a whole lot about it. So I'd like some explanation of that. Maybe I should write them all out and send them to you, and could get some answers. If you know anything right now, okay. If not, I'll take them later.
I can give it a try. So your last question, the 1.449 million, and that was associated with my water system operating budget. So those activities within the water system administration, supply service, pumping, engineering services, transmission and distribution, that's what the 1.449 million.
So you're on page 27 now, right?
27, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's our operation and maintenance. That's what it costs to operate and maintain the water system on an annual basis, the way we see it right now.
Mm-hmm. And so 2015 final budget was 1.414. We don't have what it was actual in 2014, which is something that.
Yeah, it'll be pretty close. So
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of deviation there.
And that's what we'd like to know.
Yeah.
In all these figures, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking through this thing all over the weekend, and I'm finding I got nothing to put a basis
Yeah.
of what we're doing now on, and what we did do or didn't do, or did it get, put aside. So maybe the best thing I can do is write up a thing and send it to you and try and get it done tonight, so you can answer some of those questions. The other things that I'm concerned about, I guess, is the solid waste and the yard waste and garbage, kitchen scraps, et cetera. And it's something we've talked about here, and you actually made a very good presentation, I thought, to this council with Randy Fraser in how we could do that quite economically if we got out of the commercial garbage, which we did. I don't gather, I know we did. I couldn't be in the debate, but it did happen. And it was we were to go to doing kitchen scraps with the same crews, and we had the money in the IRF to get the truck, and you had a very good plan for how to transport it until we had some way in the valley. And quite honestly, we may have trouble getting a place in the valley that's put up with the odor of this gives off. I drive down there by Duke Point when I go to the ferry, and it's kind of strong. And I don't think the people in the Sashot village, for instance, would be interested in having that so close to them. So it may be the best way. You say it's not ideal. Yep, you're right. It's not ideal. Gary Swan will give me hick. Yep, that'll happen. Mm-hmm. But, we may have to do something like that. We have promised to do it. I personally don't need it. I got 8 or 9 compost bins in my yard, and all I take to the landfill is brushes and oak leaves that don't decompose anyway. But other than that, I don't, but lots do. And people who rent, people who are in apartments and that, they've got kitchen scraps they've got to get rid of. And if we were to have a program of that, we could do it. And I just think we should be on it. And I don't know if you want to comment on that or just take that for under advisement, whatever, I don't care.
Well, no, I'd like to comment on it.
Okay.
And it's like I've said, it is a complicated
It's not
service.
complicated.
And the report that the regional district puts out, highlights some of the challenges associated with that. And so I'd be open to having a meeting with the councillors and we could just sit down and talk about some of the challenges around that. There are cost estimates in there, what it would cost the individual homeowner, if we were to move in a certain direction. They're high-level cost estimates. But I think it is worth sitting down and as opposed to going through this project blindly.
Okay. Councillor McClement, did you?
Yeah, the only other comment I already made is on the bike lanes. I'm very concerned. I happen to agree with having them. I think Nanaimo's done a very good job. Most of them are off the main roads,
Yeah.
and they're on off-road trails and so on. Other towns have gone completely off the roads, and that's where I think we should be. We got a train track, we got other things we can go along, we got areas we can take them, but you got a diagram in there in 10th Avenue, it just gives me shivers. I'm sorry, I can't see that being safe either way. And the only thing to do is put a barrier up, then you can't park any cars. So I think we really have a lot of talking to do about the bike lanes and the costs thereof. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paulson?
Just want to chat just briefly about the LED lighting. Last year we allocated 100,000 this year and 100,000 next year for replacement, and this year it's 150. So I'm a glass half full guy. Can we get it all done for 150?
Yeah. I'd like to talk about that a little bit more. So we estimated $200,000 for the total project, and we thought we'd stage it like you said. We took a closer look at it this year, and we have more lights than our light bill said we had. Our street superintendent's not here now, but we have about 700 lamps where we thought we had about 500 lamps. So I'd like to mention the BC Hydro initiative. They seem to have this program that would allow us $60,000 in grant if we move before, I think it's March or April. So I'll get more of that information. So we're going ahead right now filling out this application, assuming whether we move forward on this project or not, that doesn't matter. We need to move forward on this application now, and if we get council's approval, we'll submit it to get the highest level of BC Hydro incentive. Next year it'll be less. So I think $150,000 will do the main lights within the city, yes. It has been brought to my attention that the city parking lots and the city facilities and some of the special lighting that we have up in different areas, that will cost another $50,000 if we were to add the parking lots and stuff to that. But that could be done at another date too, or we'd add $50,000 to that 150 to get all of the lights in the city, including the parking lots, city facilities, and these special lights within the city. And we just had a recent assessment about that, so I'm pretty confident that that would be the case.
Just as an aside or onto that, so there's a bit of sticker shock obviously when you see that those kind of figures, but roughly what's the payback in savings?
Yeah.
3 years, 4 years?
No, well, it'd be great if it was 3 or 4 years. It's $35,000 a year in energy costs. So I guess I'm a little bit skeptical. That could be 4 years, it could be 5 years. Anything in that range is a really good investment. Even if it was double that, 8 years, it's still a good investment from my perspective. $35,000 a year. So that's our estimated cost savings per year. Those are estimated capital costs for that project. And yeah, it would be a worthy project to move on. And I'm just adding another $50,000 if you'd like to do the parking lots, city facilities, and special lighting to that 150.
Okay, Councillor Minions?
Thank you. Last year, we voted to reduce street sweeping by $25,000 and focus more on the main routes.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering how that went. So did we have any problems, complaints?
Mhm.
Did we reduce it? What are we expected to be at for the actual number for this year?
Mr. Mayor, that was a dismal failure on our part. We did get a lot of complaints. We couldn't keep up the level of service that, I guess we felt or was demanded of us. So we weren't able to achieve that level of cost reduction that I was aiming for. In the budget process, there's always pressures to reduce, and that level of service, I call it cosmetic. It's really difficult to reduce that cosmetic level of service. So that was a failure, in fact. So the level that we have in the budget now this year is still going to be challenging, but we're going to approach it differently from an operational point of view. We're going to, clearly we have challenges around the springtime and the fall, and then we have our main corridors, and so we're going to manage it differently this year, and hopefully I can come back and say that this is the level of street sweeping that you saw in 2016. If that's the level that you want, I'm confident this will be how much it is. And if there's pressures on us, perhaps halfway through the year I'll let you know. I'll just let you know. But is it a demanded service, despite our efforts to cut back.
Great, thank you.
Which department is responsible for Harbor Key?
The Parks and Rec.
Okay. The Harbor Road, I was listening to the news at lunchtime today, and it sounds like the federal government is getting closer to announcing a program for how municipalities can access federal infrastructure dollars. It sounds to me, when I heard the very brief quote from the minister, that that might be a possible infrastructure project that would be relatively would be seen quite positively because of its many benefits. Is that something that you're on top of?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. If that's council's direction there, we would go through that process of making an application. The way the federal government moves is pretty slow. So I'm not sure. I'd like to chat with the finance director to see what the terms of those applications would be. When we make an application, they want to see what our source of funds are. So perhaps council needs to allocate the funds in the budget for 2016 so we can say that we are ready to go with it in terms of our financing piece, right? So that'd be something I think we should work with you on, and to see how important it would be to put a number in there. We'll go ahead with the application for sure, based on our preliminary engineering design that we've done, some years ago, make some assessments around that.
Okay, and one last question for me is, I notice with our audit committee reports that city spends a fair amount of money on electricians. Is there a value in the city to having our own on-staff electrician and accompanying whatever equipment that needs to go with that, tools and...
Mr. Mayor, we have looked at that over the years. I know of a couple times, and the feasibility wasn't there in terms of the bucket truck and the equipment and the and whatnot. But you're right. We do a lot of electrical work within the operations of the city, and that is contracted out. It's something that we could look at again if you'd like.
And is it something, when we do the contracted out, is it contracted with regular opportunities for businesses in the city to bid on that work, or is it always given to the same company? Always
it's primarily sole sourced. However, the other electricians, and I can't speak for the entire city, but I know the Parks and Rec area contract other electricians than say the Public Works. But Bailey Electric has done the predominant work of our, and and for, I guess there's some synergies around knowing how your system works as opposed to, it really, I don't see it as a commodity service, as a specialty service, but it's something we can look at if you like.
Okay, Councillor Sobe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On that same issue having to do with the electric, I'm on the audit committee and I saw the large bills having to do with electricians and so forth. Are the electricians paid the same price per hour, or is it depending on the job? I'm not exclude parts and everything. I'm just talking about the labor wise.
Yeah.
Because I see the electrician taking down Christmas lights, and I see the electrician working on something major. So I'm just wondering, are we paying the same level, or is it by job?
No, I recall the journeyman electrician rate. When we have a journeyman electrician on it, it's $60 an hour. And whether he's doing our high-tech SCADA work or work within our pump stations or, like you say, well, taking down the Christmas lights is a very small part of the electrical function. But yeah, if he was working that job, he would be his rate.
Okay. Councillor, you asked all your questions? Are there any questions from members of the public? Yes. Please come forward.
My name's Don Dunbar. I live on Valley Crescent.
Okay.
And I was listening to the radio last week, and I understand that mayor and council have shifted one of their employees into a different job, and the mayor, I think, said on the radio is going to be in charge of special projects in engineering department. Now, I haven't heard anything from the engineering department regarding what those special projects might be. If we're shifting a person that's getting paid that much money, I would expect that there would be some big jobs that he's going to be working on, and with costs involved. So,
You're wondering what the big jobs are?
well, what I'm wondering is how much is it going to cost more, because now we've ostensibly created a new position, and what he's going to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So at least initially, the three major projects that he will be working on are the projects around what we call the Coal Creek drilling. So that's drilling under 3rd Avenue, just beyond the old Zeller's store. The other project, another project he'll be working on is the Sewage Lagoon project. And the third one is there's a project looking at the feasibility of tying in Sprout Lake to the city water system.
So what are the costs associated with those?
Well, we don't know those costs yet, but that's some significant engineering advice that we can take advantage of.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, anything else? Any other questions? All right, then City Engineer, thank you very much for your presentation. And thank you to the IT department for getting everything up and running. Okay, Council, our next presentation is from BC Transit, Johan van Schaik. Welcome, Johan, from the Senior Regional Transit Manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to Council this afternoon, just to give a brief little overview and update of the Port Alberni transit system and how it is functioning. Just in terms of this update, I'd like to provide just a quick overview of the model and the responsibilities of the partners in the transit delivery model. Then just very briefly talk about the existing transit system structure. Then I would like to give an update on ridership and revenue in terms of the transit system performance, as well as a little bit of an overview of the financial performance, and then conclude with one or two initiatives that are currently underway. So just as an update, We have spoken about this before, but BC Transit is the provincial authority that is responsible for operating transit systems in the province. And currently in the province, annually, we provide 51 million passenger trips on 81 transit systems, and we currently have a total bus fleet of 1,020 vehicles. Speaking of the transit delivery model, we obviously enter into partnerships, and we have 58 partnerships with local government partners, the City of Port Alberni being one. And in terms of the delivery of the service, we have relationships with 18 private management companies, 5 public operators, as well as 14 non-profit organizations. The transit service model, really, there's just a little bit of a summary of what that looks like. It's a 3-party agreement where we have a local authority, where we have BC Transit, which represents the provincial government, and then we enter into agreement with a local operator that delivers the service on behalf of BC Transit. Summary of the responsibilities. Let's start with the local government. Really is to set transit priorities, establish the routes that we want to deliver service on, and then the service levels on those routes, to set the transit fares, to obviously approve budgets, and to provide the local share of that cost of service, which is legislated. And obviously the local share is provided via obviously revenue as well as property taxes. And then to provide and maintain transit infrastructure, bus stops, bus shelters, etc., etc. The responsibility of BC Transit is to obviously provide subject matter experts to help develop transit plans and to make recommendations to local authorities, to secure the provincial share of funding, and to arrange, to implement, and to manage the delivery of that service, to monitor system performance, and then obviously through the monitoring is to develop refinements to actually improve, expand, and make the service more efficient and more reliable. Then thirdly, the operating company in Port Alberni is Diversified Transportation, and their responsibility is to deliver the service on our behalf, following our guidelines and policies, to collect fares, train and recruit drivers, to manage the transit fleet, very important, that has been assigned to the transit system, responding to customer inquiries and complaints and commendations, to undertake on our behalf reliability and performance assessments, and to obviously submit monthly operational reports to us in terms of service delivery. Transit funding, just a brief summary of what that looks like. In Port Alberni, the total system cost is $1.8 million annually, of which 41% is covered by the local partner in terms of property taxes. Roughly 15% currently is covered by revenue, so that would be the recovery of the transit system, which is on the low side. And then the municipal share is in the order of 42%. So it's roughly, that little diagram just gives a sense of who contributes what to transit systems, and that's pretty much the case in transit systems throughout the province. Some transit systems obviously have a little bit of a higher recovery rate, but other than that, it's pretty much like that. So if we just look at the system at a glance, just to summarize, the system started up in 1971. Currently, we deliver 12,500 annual service hours. We provide trips to roughly 330,000 passengers, which equates to a ridership level of 26 rides per service hour, which compares very favorably to similar sized transit systems. Currently, we have a peak vehicle requirement of 3 vehicles in the peak because we have 1 vehicle doing each route. But we have a total fleet of 5 vehicles just to ensure that we maintain service reliability. and we operate a total of 4 routes, 3 in the week and then 1 in the evenings and on weekends. The operator, as I mentioned, was Diversified Transportation, and I should just mention I just threw in Handy Dart here as well. The custom or Handy Dart service that's delivered within Port Alberni is managed by the regional district, and the local share of that cost is split between the regional district and the city. So recent service improvements that were done in 2014 is we undertook extensive onboard surveys to review a couple of things. One is there was talk about fare evasion. Revenue was down, ridership was down, so we wanted to just make quite sure that we had a handle on the extent of revenue evasion. Secondly, we wanted to ensure that the capacity that we provide in terms of service, specifically vehicle size, matches up with the demand of service, so we aren't leaving riders behind. We wanted to do a little bit of an evaluation of the suitability of vehicles, and that specifically referred to the current vehicles that we have, which is a 1-door vehicle versus a 2-door vehicle. So that really helped us a lot to get a sense of how the system is operating. Also, what occurred in 2014, we introduced holiday levels of service, which is Sunday level of service that we provide on all holidays excepting for Christmas Day. And we also implemented a fare increase on October 1. Just in terms of the impact of service improvements and service changes and rationalization is the first 3 bullets really speak to what happened in the past, where we had earlier restructuring in 2011, 2012. Certain restructuring efforts were implemented in an effort to simplify the service and to improve on-time performance of the service. However, those changes were very, very poorly received by customers, by our riders, because it resulted in very circuitous routes, indirect routing, and the introduction of excessive transfers between buses for riders to get to their end destination. And the result of that was really there was a real decline in ridership as well as revenue. So recent initiatives really, I spoke about the service improvements that we had implemented in 2014 that led to a significant decline in the complaints that we were receiving, and our approval ratings, not only from riders but even from bus drivers, improved very nicely. And that was very good to see. However, it's a slow process. Once you lose ridership and revenue, it's a very, very slow process to regain ridership. And you may recall last year when I addressed the city, the ridership, both ridership and revenue, was very, very flat if we compared it to previous years. However, I am happy to report, and I'll get into a little bit more of the detail, but we are starting to show significant improvements in 2015, which is really, really good news. So in terms of performance, if we look at ridership and revenue, there's a summary of ridership by year 2014 versus 2015. And the good news is you can see that ridership year over year has increased by 7.5%, which is a very, very good improvement. And it is way higher than the average in the province in terms of ridership growth, which is really good news. The use of a pass type or fare type rather for ridership has remained pretty much constant, with passes being roughly 81%, cash being 15-16%, and then the balance tickets being around about 3%. So there's no change there, but it's good to see that rides have increased from 315,000 to nearly 340,000 over those 2 years, which is really, really good news, and we should all be proud of that. As far as revenue is concerned, it actually even looks better. Revenue has gone up 2014 to 2015 has gone up by 17%, which is good to see. One of the contributing reasons to that is there's been quite an increase in cash revenue versus the increase in pass revenue, and tickets have stayed more or less constant. But obviously, cash just shows that for every ride, there's more cash that's being collected. On one hand, it's a good thing because it's increased revenue, which offsets the cost of the local authority. On the other hand, it could be seen as somewhat disturbing in that typically what we see in transit systems is it's the pass revenue that increases and pass utilization that increases, that shows that people do become more permanent riders as opposed to a once-off person using cash. But nonetheless, it is a good news story all around. So if we just move on to financial performance, also again, good news story. If we just look at a couple of the indicators for the 15-16 year to date, so that would be April through to December of 2015. Revenue is up, as I've showed before, but revenue 15-16 is up by $30,000. That's 14%. Which is and that's up in comparison to budget, so that's good news. And then the other piece of the good news is that the total operating expenses and obviously then the total cost, which includes lease fees as well, is down. So it is lower than what we anticipated in the budget. So all around good news. The cost savings really can be attributed. Obviously, the first big one is fuel. But secondly, we are incurring cost savings over budget for vehicle maintenance as well as accident repairs. So if we move on to the financial outlook 2015-16 and then onwards for the next 3-year period, a couple of points I should make. If we look at that table, one can see from 16-17 to 17-18, this is just a 3-year budget projection. It shows an increase of 12%. I should note that increase relates to primarily a request for proposal for the selection of a new operating company, which is currently planned for 17-18. So typically, when an RFP is issued and a new operating company is selected, there is always an adjustment in the marketplace. So that would reflect that. And as I should also point out, at this point, this is just absolutely an estimate on our part in terms of how that would go, how that would increase. Moving from 17-18 to 18-19, we are projecting an increase of 2%. It is important, perhaps, just at this point, just to say something else about the 3-year budget, which we are currently showing, just summarizing on that chart, is currently the provincial 3-year budget that has been handed down by the province to BC Transit is flat, which means that there is no increase in the provincial share of budget at this point in time over a 3-year period. And because the cost sharing of the transit system is legislated, the share of the province versus the share of the local authority work in lockstep. So if one party were to reduce or to maintain a flat budget, the other party would have to do the same thing to maintain those percentages. Please.
One question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The concern I have here is that for the project of the 3-year budget projections is the fact that we see a commitment with the province in 2018-19 being less 2.7%, and for the city it's still being raised. So you're talking about cost sharing and they're staying flat, but in fact they're backing off into providing any more in their budget. They're cutting their budget by 2.7%, and we're sticking it's going to be elevated to 6.9 for 2018-19. So how is that staying flat if the provincial government is backing off in funds?
The slide, it's a very good question. Thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. The slide is not quite self-explaining in that the way that we do budgets and have always done budgets, they reflect operating cost, total operating cost of the service. But as far as lease fees, it only reflects the local share of lease fees. So the minus 2.7, I'll definitely take a look at that, a closer look, and perhaps give some more detailed response to this. But how this plays out in terms of the percentage change year over year is just based on the line items in the budget itself that give that answer. So that is, if one just looks at the table, yes, it is very, very deceiving. But I will go back and I will just double check and make sure that these numbers are correct.
Thank you.
So with the flat provincial funding, what has transpired is that the province has amended the regulations of the BC Transit Act, which allows BC Transit to establish a reserve in funding, so that what if we bill the actual budget versus if we bill budget as opposed to the actual cost, the savings can be incorporated into a reserve, and those savings can be used in future years to offset costs and cost increases, to ensure that we during this period can keep providing the same or support the base level of transit service. I also spoke about the increase in cost due to the impact of a request for proposal, and one of the avenues that we are pursuing is to look at the potential of doing a contract extension with the existing operating company in an effort to reduce and mitigate costs as well. So that is an initiative on our part that is well underway. So in summary, just some of the initiatives, we spoke about the operating contract extension as part of a financial initiative. The second initiative that's underway is we are looking at replacing the complete fleet, 5 vehicles, in the 16-17 financial year. And it's kind of interesting. On the left-hand side, you will see the current vehicles that are operating the service, which is a Dennis Dart vehicle. And we are currently looking at 2 other vehicles. A final decision has not been made, but it's very close to being made in terms of a replacement. It's either a vicinity bus, which has a capacity of 39 total passengers with 1 door, or what we call a new flyer midi bus, which has a significantly higher capacity. It can go up to 54 capacity, depending on the door configuration, because it could be 1 or 2 doors. So that is quite exciting. So that's something that we're working on. And then a third initiative that is currently underway is senior outreach to promote ridership amongst the seniors, and we are currently working with the Sunshine Club to look at some ways of partnering with them or with other organizations to deliver educational sessions in an effort to raise the awareness of transit among seniors. There is also a program called a Bus Buddy program, which is a regular program where volunteers go and they actually deliver services for seniors to specific destinations. So it's a little bit more hands-on than just education. So we are working with the Seniors Club, and hopefully we will, in the months to come, have some ideas come forward that we could take further. And then finally, we are working with the regional district on the regional transportation study. BC Transit is currently a stakeholder in that process. But that study really is looking at the coordination and improvement of all transportation options throughout the regional district. And that, Mr. Mayor, is the end of my presentation, so I will be happy to take any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you. Council? Councillor Paulson?
Just a quick comment on the regional transportation study, and Councillor Unions and myself just recently had a youth advisory reach out to the leadership class at the high school. One of the things that was identified in that class was the lack of access to transportation from the outlying areas, Smoke Lake, Beaver Creek, Cherry Creek. And they specifically said that's why we don't come into the city to use facilities a lot. And some of those families are financially burdened, or parents just don't want to drive back into town for 20 minutes where the kids could be. So I just thought I would pass that message forward. It came from the leadership class at the ADSS as being a barrier for access to city facilities. So.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the total cost. Each $150,000 more or less is about 1% on our tax base. So at 1.871 million, you represent approximately 12%. And then the increase from 2016 to 2018 is another 2% on top of that, more or less. So we've got some significant increasing costs associated with transit on our city taxpayers. And I mean, obviously, as a city, we subsidize each ride quite a bit. And that subsidy comes from our taxpayers, so we have to be really conscious that what we're asking our taxpayers to do as we move from year to year. So I do get concerned about the increased costs. I recognize that there's a reason for it, but I also recognize somebody's got to pay.
Absolutely.
I don't see the province stepping up and saying, "Oh, just, here we'll kick in," because we know cities are stretched. We don't have a surplus, unlike the provincial government. Chris.
Few things. The new options that you had for your fleet. I guess currently, because of the bike discussions we've been having earlier, I'm wondering whether we have bike racks currently on all of our buses, or if we don't, if that would be an option with the new fleet that would come in to service.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The current fleet, they do all have bike racks, the capacity of two bikes. And the new buses will come equipped with bike racks as well. Yeah. I often get asked why 2 bikes, why not more bikes? And I'm not an engineer, but I understand from our fleet engineering department, it's all got to do with sight lines, visibility, and the headlights at night.
I can confirm that having those bikes, it's amazing how much they get used. I use the bus service actually a lot in Nanaimo because I go back and forth to work on the bus. And in the past 5 years, it's gone from the odd bike on the bus to 3 or 4 times a semester someone getting left behind because there's already 2 bikes on the rack. So I think there's growth there. My hope is that as we move forward with bike lanes in the city, that would actually spur growth on the transit system as well, because sometimes you're going to be able to ride to work one way, but it might start snowing on the way home or something like that, and I want to put it on the bus to get back. So I see that as a really good opportunity for synergies there.
Yeah.
So another thing I'd like to just put out there, I guess, is You talked about targeting senior ridership and trying to get that up. I know also there's a lot of concern in the school community about trying to get kids to school now that the bus services from the school district is starting to sort of taper off a little bit, and whether there's opportunities there for the for kids to take the city bus. Whether there's, I don't know, better ways of routing. I don't really want to go down the routing changes route, but you know, if there's ways that we can target kids and show them that option might be there as well, maybe they'd be able to take the bus and increase our ridership too.
If I may, I think, thank you very much. That is a very good point. I think that is something that we have to be cognizant of and need to be involved in that discussion and ongoing discussions on that to see if where there are opportunities and synergies. Yes.
Do our buses have more capacity? You know, in other words, could they take more riders if there were more people wanting to ride on the transit system, or are they already maxed out?
No, they could most definitely take more riders. Our peak service day is Welfare Wednesday.
Okay.
And then some of those rides on those days are very close to capacity. Once or twice it has been that we would perhaps have a pass up and leave someone behind, but that happens very, very seldomly. That was one of the reasons why we did the survey in 2014, is just to get a real good handle on exactly on the busy days and in the peak on the peak trips what exactly happens and where does it happen and how often does it happen. Because you see, if you do a trip, there may just be at one specific stop where you pick up more people than you have, or you would like to pick up more people than you have capacity for, as opposed to maybe the whole trip is at capacity. So there are a couple of times where we do reach capacity, but overall there is spare capacity. And then with the newer vehicles, we will ensure that that capacity is not compromised.
So then, are there ways we can get even more people on the buses, whether it be incentives or other programs that would persuade them to go on?
I think we should very much look at what those incentives could be and sit together and figure out and come up with some ideas. How do we go about promoting transit to riders and non-riders, obviously the non-riders, but in the different categories, whether they're students, whether they're seniors, or whether they're adults.
Yeah, because I noticed when, last time we were in Europe, we were in some smaller cities, and their buses seem to be packed compared to our buses here. So maybe it's a matter of what people get used to. The assumption is, well, we're going to ride the bus, but we're not going to, drive a car or what have you. Maybe it has something to do with the cost of gas in Europe at that time. I'm not sure, but I just noticed a lot more people riding the buses.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, just a question on your structure page here, Port Alberni Transit System at a glance. You talk about 12,500 annual service hours. What does that mean? What's a service hour? I guess I can multiply. But
a service hour is an hour of service that a bus is in revenue service.
okay, so every year we run 12,500 hours.
That is correct.
And I just did a quick math, and I guess there's more buses out there than I thought because I added up to 8,000. So, and 26 rides per service hour. How does that compare to other towns?
It compares very well. It is very close to the average for similar size transit systems in the province.
So what's our capacity per service hour? If you don't know, you can answer later or not at all. It's not that serious,
Well,
but I'm just curious.
What we need to do is we need to take the capacity of a vehicle and multiply that by 3, roughly, is going to give us capacity.
Between 60 and 80.
Hmm?
Between 60 and 80.
60 and 80? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Johan, thank you very, very much for your presentation.
Thank you very
This
much.
is great. It's good information for us. Thank you. Great, council, that is the end of our presentations for this session. A motion to adjourn would be in order. Oops. Sorry, Councilor McClellan.
Well, we got council review here. I was wondering if I could
Thank
ask
you.
a question.
Yes.
Okay, a couple of things. And tonight, under this thing, I got a suggestion, but it's not about today's subjects, but I think we should have some place where we put in ideas. So what would like to do is have more information on the sheets of particularly the engineering department. And so I will send questions to Guy and CC the council, so you know what I'm asking, and see where we can go. Because, I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out, what are we gaining on, what is going up and what's going down. I had a real problem figuring a lot of it out going by the numbers we had. So I will ask some specific ones, Guy, if you don't mind.
Oh, please.
And if you could answer those, and I'll try and transpose them to all the others, because every line just about had the same question. Okay, thank you. And tonight, I got some other ideas. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, councilors?
If nobody else does.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just one thing. In the past, after the presentation, we've had like the engineering or say, the fire department would say there'd be a 0 increase in his budget this year or a minus or a 1.1% increase. And I haven't heard that from either the transit or the engineering department. Is there a magic number that we can start basing this whole thing on?
Don't know.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, we had that last budget time as into what the proposal were and asking for an extra 2%, 1%, and we're working that way to the point that we were able to compare with the variance of what is the basic percentage that's already in place. And we actually saw it going up and down, and it worked out a lot for us to actually set priorities.
So, city engineer, do you have an idea of what your percentage is?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think a lot of the questions that Councillor McClellan will have will be based on our general revenue plan and the water plan. And at the end of, throughout the whole document, there's some thick black lines, and then there's percentage differences between 2015 and 2016. Fair enough, it's 2015 final as opposed to 2015 actual, which we can't get, but it is a good metric to go from 15 to 16. So, like for instance, the transportation service for my department went down 0.6%. In that $2.1 million category, and the roads and transportation went up 2.33%. Storm drainage, all of transportation service went up 0.19%, incorporating all the storm drainage. So those are some good indicators, and I think that's what Councillor Clement was trying to zero in on some of those figures. And yeah, I appreciate, and then I can get some more detail on that. Cemetery is up 1.75%. So I think that's probably more useful or helpful than engineering department as a whole would be, an average of all of those percentages. Does that help, Councillor?
Well, it might
Washington?
be nice to know what your total budget is that you're asking for in 2016 as opposed to what it was in 2015.
15.
And what percentage increase is that? Because I doubt that it's going to be a decrease.
Yeah. I have that actually. And then there's the water revenue side and the sewer side. So it's a little bit more complicated than that. But yeah, okay.
We can handle complicated.
Yep.
Okay, and Councillor Alamany wants to put you on the hot seat.
Hopefully, just that maybe the answer is there. I think on this page, yeah. Is the number that Councillor Washington is looking for, is that the percent increase over the prior year? down second from the bottom, 0.3%. Is that consistent with what you showed us?
I had
Today,
a couple of
or
small
is-
numbers, and then I had some 2%. So I'll look into that with the treasurer, and but yeah, that seems, yeah, we'll work.
And
see.
that would be separate from sewer and water, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, simple, just so I'm clarified, we're looking just like last year was black and white. Our department is gonna have a 2% increase or decrease, and the reasoning why, and have the elements, subject matters of where the increase or decreases are. Simple as that. That's what I would be looking forward to going forward on this budget presentations for any other departments.
Okay, thank you. So now, Councillor McClement, did you want to make that motion?
Sure, I move we adjourn.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Great, thank you very much. We're back at 6 o'clock, Council.
This is, this whole budget is $3 million.
So is this what Kathy just started?
Old Randy, you know, yeah, I thought, I agree with you, but I thought, unless you want to do a little field trip,